our review of the GAC Empow GE, we talked about how it could possibly stand out in a sea of crossovers because, well, sedans really aren't as popular as they were before. This time around, we have the top of the line Empow GE. Now, on this episode of Behind the Wheel, we're going to talk about just exactly how it could possibly stand in its own category. See, when you first entered the Philippines, or when this car first entered the Philippines, it's not as if it stood there and said, oh, ano, square, hawakan mo yung tenga. No, it didn't want to start a ruckus. But when you come with the specs that it does have, well, that's exactly what you're gonna get with the likes of the Toyota Corolla Altis and or the Honda Civic. So stick around till the end of this episode and find out if it has what it takes to shake things up. Ejection mode is active. No. Now, as I mentioned, we do have a video, and it's quite extensive actually, when we covered the Empow GE, and the links are found somewhere down below. Also, if you'd like to see a video of how the Empow is up against, say, the MG GT, haha, we've got a video of that too. Again, the links are found down below. But today we're taking a look at this car and its contact up against the other cars, the aforementioned, in that particular category. Let's start first with its price. If I whip out my trusty phone and get to the AutoDeal app, you'll see that the Empow GE comes in at 1,348,000 Philippine pesos, where the likes of, say, the Civic RS comes in well over 1,700,000 Philippine pesos. The Mazda 3 comes in at over 1,500,000 Philippine pesos, and the closest would actually be the Altis GRS non-hybrid, which comes in at 1,302,000 Philippine pesos. So it's not the most affordable car out there, but it's far from being the most expensive. It's very athletic. You can't get by and not say that about this automobile for many reasons. The sharp cuts up front and the color. The sharp cuts and the way it looks in the front clip, kind of similar to that of the Corolla Altis. Much further than that from the Mazda 3 or, let's say, for example, the Honda Civic as well, which is a bit rounder. These two, when I'm talking about this and the Altis, it's like much sharper. You've got a large grille up front, vents here on the bottom that do work, large LED headlamps, and then I cannot miss out on the color of this automobile. This is not a wrap. This is the fighter green color that the top trim comes in, and it is gorgeous. Much like the color of the EV6, where you think it's actually a wrap, no. That's the actual paint of the EV6, which we have a review of, by the way. The links are somewhere down below. Same thing here. Very unique color. And the entire look of the automobile gets everybody turning their heads. Really quite different. Down the side, you've got calipers that are painted in a yellow accent, much like the other accents that you would find on the front clip. You've got full carbon fiber on the side mirror and the skirt down below, which looks really good. Then it's got a sloping roof line here up on top. Reminds me of certain Audis. I love the large 18-inch wheels that sit above, unfortunately, only about a little more than 120 millimeters of ground clearance. And at that number, if you're thinking that it might be a problem for speed bumps out there, the much larger ones, yes. The smaller ones, no. But yeah, the larger ones, medyo sideways, right? At the rear, I love the way that it's shaped too. It's got a very short or very small door for the rear compartment. The faux carbon underneath, it makes a really nice diffuser to it. And then of course, the 4 exhausts that you find in this automobile, which all work, by the way, and Jack absolutely loves. Now, one of the more popular tools that we have on our website is our Comparo tool. And if you use it to pit this car up against the aforementioned, you'll see that, well, the difference in wheelbase from the Empow and the likes of the Honda Civic is a difference of only 1 millimeter. But the body length, that's where it differs, because the Empow is longer by 250, almost 300 millimeters. You'll notice though when we show you later that the space inside is roughly the same. The reason why the body's a little bit longer is because the overhangs are that much longer. Now, while I am quite impressed with the exterior of this automobile, it does have a flaw, and I'm not nitpicking here because I know everybody will feel the same. See, you can't open the rear trunk with a button that's located, I don't know where. It's not. There is no way to open it. You can only open this with a button inside or by whipping out the key fob and pressing the button twice, which I think is a bit exagerado. The trunk capacity though is, it looks quite large, but on paper, according to their website, it's only 375 liters, which I think they need an update because this is at least 400 liters of space. It's quite large. Now, it won't fit a balikbayan box if I were to fold this and make it into a box because the opening is actually quite small, but it is quite cavernous that it can fit it flat without any issues whatsoever. Now, if trunk capacity is actually a very big deal for you inside a sedan, then you might want to look at the likes of the Mazda 3 and, of course, the Honda Civic, because those things are, you can fit Jack in there. Ooh, you can fit Jack.
Nope.
You know,
I'm not doing that again.
the viewers are clamoring for it, Jack. You cannot upset the viewers. Now, when it comes to the interior of the Empow, I will say that the materials are much nicer in here than that of the Altis, and then the implementation of certain tech is also much better. Like, it's better infotainment and better instrument cluster. The materials, like I said, is much nicer. And to be honest with you, here it does look and feel much more modern. As compared to the Civic though, the layout of the Honda is much more like intuitive and aesthetic. It's much neater. The build quality and the material is better too. But hey, the Empow does get quite close. But when we're talking about interior quality, you certainly can't go without mentioning the Mazda 3 because inside that car, it really feels like you're almost inside something that's a price bracket above. The overall interior of the Empow is really a bit more flamboyant. It's a bit more out there. Like, for instance, the faux carbon fiber. It's a bit much if you ask me, but I will take that any day of the week and twice on Sundays over piano black. Seriously. The implementation of things is actually very good. Build quality, like I said, is also good. The yellow stitching on the seats, I like. It really does add sportiness to it. Then you've got the fact that you've got yellow seat belts, right? The stitching of yellow continues on the dashboard. Then you've got ambient lighting that you can change the color too. We made it yellow to match the car. In general, it just feels and looks like it's younger than its Japanese counterparts. You get it? Usability in the Empow is surprisingly good. There are a lot of physical controls still, so you don't have to bother going into the screen for any important functions. Like air controls are physical, you have a drive mode selector right here, and then on the other side, you have volume controls also. In the Empow, you get a large 10.25-inch screen. It's very clear and quite responsive, and it's pretty straightforward to use and comes with Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. The Civic is the most modern of the Japanese that I've been referring to, so it only makes sense that it has the best infotainment of them all. It's easy to use, quick to respond, and laid out really well. There are also some pretty cool features that I love inside this automobile, but I do have to start the car to show you. Number one is, well, I like the fact that there are chrome accents that are found on the steering wheel. Really gives it a very youthful feel. I'm going to turn on the air here just to show you some other things. The next would be the fact that it's got drive modes that you can switch from, let's say, from Eco to Comfort to Sport Plus, but it also comes with somewhat of a sound. I don't know if you can hear this. That's pretty cool, right? And then here's one other thing. When you flip this automobile into manual, that's drive right there. I gotta take it out of park. But when you flip it into manual, it tells you top player is ready for fighting. What? Then to add to its youthful exuberance, there's a button right here that opens a valve out back so that it changes the sound of the exhaust from quiet to... Another highlight of the GAC Empow is the fact that there is, like I mentioned earlier, 300 millimeters more body length inside this car, which means that you've got lots of great space inside the automobile. That is my normal driving position. Look at the amount of space that I have for my leg room right there. The tunnel is quite low. The headroom is that's a little compromised because of the sloping roofline. I myself don't have an issue. Jack, a taller person like himself, will be compromised here, but because his head is like millimeters from the top already. To get a more detailed look at the features and the space and whatnot that you can find inside the interior of the Empow, do look at the review that we have of the GB, which the links are found downward below. The odd thing, though, is that the price difference between the GB and the GE is short of 50,000 Philippine pesos. So my question would be like, why would anyone pa get the lower variant? There is a reason why we, and certainly some of you out there, pit this car up against the Civic because, well, it does have a lot of similarities, and on paper, this car even has a bit more than what the Civic can offer. Let me show you. But before we do please subscribe to our channel. We create all these videos just for you guys. Up front, the Empow, whether in the GB or GE trim, is powered by the same 4-cylinder 1.5-liter turbocharged gasoline engine that produces 174 horses, which is already ridiculous enough, but 270 newton meters of torque with launch control. Now, I don't get to say that very often, and I don't get to use it very often because I think it's silly, but when you have it, grab it, rip it, and go. Ejection mode is active. Go! Ooh. Now, a main reason why we like to compare this to the Civic, as what we've done earlier in this program, is because the figures are just so close to one another. For instance, the horsepower is all of 1 horsepower difference, but the torque, well, that's 20 newton meters difference. So you'll understand why a lot of people, including ourselves, like to compare this with the Civic. And not just there too, but also its fuel efficiency figures. Because in the city, this can do up to about 10 kilometers per liter, and on the highway, 18 kilometers per liter. Now, if you do your research and head on over to our website, you'll see that the Civic's fuel efficiency numbers are quite similar. Now, while the torque is absolutely excellent, the transmission, which is a 7-speed DCT, is really good when you're out on the highway. Pushes you really well, it doesn't spool for very long, and you get going. The problem is when you get stuck in stop-and-go traffic. As with most DCTs, it sort of like lurches forward when you don't want it to. And then when you want the car to move forward, you step on the accelerator, but sometimes it feels like it's a bit too much. So there is most definitely a learning curve in this car. Would I have liked it more if it was a traditional automatic? Yes, most definitely. But they have a reason to put a DCT in there, is because all that torque, they want to be able to make sure that it's also as fuel efficient as possible. So there's somewhat of a trade-off. One of the main differences that the GE has over the GB is the fact that it has paddles. And this I thought would have been able to fix some of the issues that one might have, especially when you put it in manual, when it comes to the transmission of the automobile. Unfortunately, it's also not that responsive when you're using the paddles. Like when you change, it's like it's reading a book or having a cup of tea before it actually changes, and that's already using the paddles. I will, however, point out that, my goodness, Jack and I absolutely agree that we have no qualms, zero qualms about the NVH inside this car. Even though this car is on 45 series tires, and the wheels look gorgeous, by the way, whether it's standing still or at speed, the NVH inside this car is superb. Whether you are on rough roads like EDSA, traveling at even 60 kilometers per hour, or even better, when you're on the highway, it's quiet. It's really quiet. Except, of course, when you push that little button and you want to hear the exhaust. I'd say it's about par when it comes to NVH with all the other compact sedans that we've driven out there. As sporty as it is, with the low ground clearance and even the bolsterings, the major bolsterings that you will find on the chair, it's surprisingly comfortable to drive this automobile. Jack has taken his time driving this automobile, as have I, inside this same chair, but neither of us have ever felt fatigued while driving it, whether at speed on the highway or in traffic. It's quite, I don't know how they're making it so athletic looking and feeling, but yet not naman lounge chair, but I'm not fatigued at all. I can drive it. Maybe I shouldn't, but as a whole, the Empow basically drives the way that it looks. It's sharp, for better or for worse, and for worse, I mean the transmission, and it really marches to its own beat. It's not trying to, say, copy-paste what everybody else has done in the Philippines with regard to a sedan. No, it's taken the sedan formula and really made it its own. There are, by the way, advanced driver assist systems inside the Empow, which is really a very nice thing. It's a very welcome thing, especially at this price point. You've got cruise control, adaptive cruise control, lane keep, and all that jazz. Now, while I will say that it is available here, unfortunately, it's not as refined as, let's say, for example, the Japanese counterparts. But I will add that to get these advanced driver assist systems in the Japanese counterparts, you'd have to pony up a heck of a lot more, in the sense of you are looking at maybe about 1.5, that area, for the Civic V, and then you're looking at even more at about 1.7 for the Mazda and the Toyotas that are hybrids. And again, allow me to reiterate, I've already said it once in this video, but if you'd like a more in-depth look at the Empow, do head on over to our review of the Empow GB, which I'm sure that the links, as I've said earlier, are down below. After all my research, I still don't know what sedan to get. Do the right thing and get yourself a sensible Japanese automobile like the Altis. You know it's a Toyota, so it will last you for a very long time, and then you can pass it on to your children, sort of like a generational heirloom. Think of the children. Think of your legacy. Imagine all that turbocharged goodness wrapped in fighter green with the growl of a quad exhaust. Imagine the look on the boy's face when you hit launch control. Come on, YOLO AF. Did you say launch control? I'm there. Yes, shotgun. Look, in all seriousness, you take one look at the car and you already know what you're getting. It's sharp, it's flamboyant, and it's definitely different from the others that you will see in its segment here in the Philippines. Now, to go back to the beginning of this program and ask the same question, which is, can it keep up with the established nameplates in this category? It does have its flaws, like the transmission. I'm not too happy about it. But at the price that it comes in, with all the features that it has inside, well, to be only fair, the answer to that question would be yeah. Oh yeah, it definitely can. Ejection mode is active. No!